Have you ever noticed how the smallest excuse can be the last thing anyone remembers? Not an argument, not a farewell, just a quiet, ordinary reason before someone is never seen again. My name is Natalie Pierce, 28 years old. I wasn't reckless, I wasn't careless. I was the type who reminded others to lock their doors, who texted friends after midnight just to be sure they got home safe. But that night, safety was the last thing on my mind. I was sitting at a booth with Sophie and Marcus, their laughter tangled with the clinking of silverware and the hum of conversations around us. The restaurant smelled of garlic bread and spilled wine, familiar and warm. I excused myself with a smile, slid out of the booth, and said 5 words no one questioned. "I'll be right back." The hallway to the restrooms was narrow, lined with faded photographs of old city streets. My heels tapped against the tile, steady, unhurried. Halfway down, the light above me flickered once, then steadied again. I thought nothing of it. But then I heard it. A phone buzzing, not mine, vibrating hard against the counter just past the door. The sound stopped, then buzzed again. Urgent, relentless, as though someone had left it there on purpose. My hand hovered, debating if I should look. That hesitation cost me everything, because the restroom door never opened for me. Have you ever seen handwriting that looked familiar, yet something in it felt disturbingly wrong? That's what Madison's mother, Caroline, found the morning after her daughter disappeared. A folded sheet of lined paper, resting neatly on the pillow where her daughter had slept the night before. The message read, "Don't look for me. I'm safe." But Caroline froze. Madison never called her Mom in writing. Always Mama. And the shaky script looked practiced, almost rehearsed. Police were called immediately, but when Detective Sean Holloway arrived, he noted something stranger. The edges of the note were creased, as if it had been carried in someone's pocket for days before being placed there. And here's the question that still haunts this case. If Madison left that note herself, why did she leave without her phone, her shoes, or the necklace she never took off? Some neighbors whispered about a truck that circled the block twice that night. Others swore they saw Madison talking to someone at her window in the shadows. But the most chilling detail? Caroline admitted something she had never told investigators before. 3 days earlier, Madison had confessed she was scared of someone. She wouldn't say who. She only whispered, "If anything happens, it won't be an accident." So, was the note a goodbye, or a planted message meant to throw everyone off? I remember holding that note over the sink, the paper shaking in my hands. Madison's handwriting had always curved to the right, playful and certain. This was stiff, almost forced, as though someone copied her instead of knowing her. Neighbors filtered into the house by mid-morning, whispering in corners, avoiding my eyes. One of them, Mrs. Kincaid, reached for my shoulder and whispered, "She probably just ran off. Teenagers do that, Caroline." But my heart wasn't confused. It was terrified. Madison didn't run away. She didn't take her shoes. She didn't grab her phone. And she never left me without a word. Detective Holloway arrived that afternoon. He leaned against the kitchen counter, watching me crumble as I tried to explain the note. His silence was heavy, the kind that tells you he sees what you see, but won't say it out loud. "We'll treat it seriously," he finally said, sliding the page into a plastic sleeve. But it wasn't just the words that haunted me. It was the way they smelled faintly of gasoline, as if someone had carried them from a garage, not a bedroom. And in that moment, a thought cut through me like glass. What if this note wasn't left to reassure me? What if it was left to buy him time? Detective Holloway stood in Madison's room longer than anyone else. He didn't rush. He traced the edge of her open window with a gloved hand, then crouched to study the faint scuff marks on the sill. "She didn't climb out of here," he murmured, almost to himself. Caroline froze in the doorway. Her breath caught because hearing it from him made it real. Madison hadn't slipped away. Something or someone had pulled her into the night. Holloway bagged a strand of hair snagged on the window frame. Too long to be Madison's. Too coarse. The kind of detail that twists the stomach before the mind can even catch up. He asked to see the backyard. That's when Caroline noticed the grass, bent in two neat trails leading toward the side gate. She had mowed just days before. The paths weren't natural. Someone had walked there carrying weight. The neighbor's security camera should have captured everything. But when Holloway requested the footage, the neighbor, Mr. Perkins, scratched his head. The hard drive had been wiped clean during the night. Caroline's knees buckled, because now it wasn't just Madison who was gone. It was proof, and the question no one dared say out loud hung in the air. Who in this neighborhood knew enough to erase it? By the fifth day, the search had stretched across fields and riverbanks, but the silence in Caroline's chest only grew louder. Every smile from a neighbor, every "we're praying for you," felt rehearsed, like a script handed out for a performance no one believed. She sat at her kitchen table, the blinds drawn, staring at her phone as it buzzed with unanswered calls. Friends she'd known for years now spoke with a new distance, asking more about the investigation than about Madison herself. That evening, Detective Holloway returned with questions of his own. His voice was measured, almost too careful. "Caroline, is there anyone close to you? Anyone who might want to hurt your family?" Her throat tightened. The answer came before she wanted it to: her ex-husband, Greg. A man who had vanished from Madison's life 2 years earlier, after courtrooms and restraining orders carved his presence into a ghost. Caroline's hands trembled as she admitted the truth. Greg had written letters before. Angry ones, laced with the same stiff handwriting that had haunted her since she found the note. Holloway didn't flinch. He simply closed his notebook, his eyes narrowing as though the shape of the story was finally changing. For the first time, Caroline felt something colder than grief. She felt hunted. Caroline hadn't spoken Greg's name in months. Yet that night, as the wind pressed against the windows, she swore she saw his shape in the driveway. A tall figure, motionless, framed beneath the streetlight. Her heart hammered as she pulled the curtain shut. But when she opened it again, he was gone. Detective Holloway's knock came the next morning. He held up a manila folder, the kind that carried more weight than words. Inside were copies of Greg's old letters. Phrases Caroline had buried years ago now spilled back into her lap. "You can't keep her from me. She'll know the truth one day." The handwriting, that same stiff, forced script. Caroline gripped the paper so tightly her knuckles burned. The memory of Madison's note collided with Greg's threats, and suddenly the lines blurred until they were indistinguishable. But what hollowed her out wasn't the match, it was the timing. The last letter had been dated 3 weeks ago. Greg was watching long before Madison disappeared, and as Caroline whispered his name, Holloway leaned forward and asked the question she'd been too afraid to say out loud. "If he's been this close all along, what else has he taken?" Detective Holloway tracked Greg to a rundown motel off the interstate. Caroline waited in the car, her hands shaking against the steering wheel as blue lights flickered against the windshield. The door to room 14 burst open. Greg was dragged out, his face pale, his mouth spitting protests. "I never touched her. I just wanted her back." Inside the room, Holloway searched every corner, every drawer, every shadow. But there was no Madison. No trace of her voice, her clothes, her life. Only more letters, unfinished and scattered across the bed. Each one blaming Caroline. Each one signed with the same jagged scrawl. Caroline collapsed when she realized the truth. Greg's obsession had consumed him, but it hadn't led to Madison. Her daughter was still gone, swallowed by a silence even he couldn't explain. The cameras left. The neighbors stopped whispering. But Caroline's nights never ended. Every creak in the house, every gust of wind through that open window, reminded her of the same question Holloway never answered. If Greg didn't take Madison, then who did? And somewhere out there, someone still knew. If the story gripped you, don't miss what's coming next. Subscribe now to The Veil of Secret, where the shadows speak louder than the light.